So I could never understand why people would listen to people that had no qualifications or credibility or experience. And secondly, why would they settle based on other people's levels and standards? And those two aggravations kind of bothered me. So I want people to go, look, you go for what's achievable. Stop that. Go for something that people will ridicule you. Go for stupid. Go for what people will laugh at you because it's so ridiculous as a concept. And then use that laughter to fuel yourself to achieve it, to prove how inadequate they were to be able to do so.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm your host, Chris Doris, and housekeeping on you. If you're not getting notifications of my Tough Talks new episodes, right, which come out every other Thursday, so every 2 weeks, twice a month. And if you're not getting my blog posts, which come out every Tuesday, if you're not getting notified of them, or just getting them, and if you're not getting my daily dose mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less every morning, then if you'd like to, very easy, just go to christopherdoris.com/lists, LISTS, name, email, sign up, and you'll get all the goodies. I don't solicit stuff. I might make an announcement once in a blue moon of something that may be available, like a new course or something. But like seriously, that's like, I mean, blue, not even blue, like bluest moon. So it's all in service. Honest to God, that's my legacy, is my content. So I take it really seriously, and I really am committed to being of service to you. So everything that I put out there serves that intention. So get yourself the goods. We have an amazing guest today. His name is Steve Sims. He's got some cool nicknames. Somebody called him the real life Wizard of Oz. I think he was called that by Forbes or something. Someone else called him the guy who gets shit done. I like that one. That's my favorite title. He's a high-end concierge. He has like really, really rich people pay a lot of money to pull off crazy stuff. But the crazy part about it is that it isn't crazy to him, right? Let me read you a little bit about his bio from his website, which, by the way, is stevedsims.com. All right, so sing on stage with your favorite rock star. Be serenaded by Andrea Bocelli in Florence. Walk the red carpet at Sir Elton John's Oscar party. Get married in the Vatican. Dive to the wreck of the Titanic. These are just a few of the highlights of what Steve has been asked to provide for his clients. If a bricklayer from London can do this, then you're already out of excuses. I love that. This guy pulls off miracles. I can't wait. I just studied the hell out of his book right here, Bluefishing, which I cannot recommend more highly. It's all about not just having the possibility, right, that we can create things that seem so magical and out of reach, but also the mentality behind it, and then like breaking it down to the mechanics of how to first even entertain, open up to the possibility of creating the miracles that we desire, not just for other people, for ourselves, right? And yeah, this is going to be a cool one. This guy's cool. He's really fun. I watched him on another podcast. I love his style. I haven't spoken one word with him yet. So let's go do that. Let's go meet him. Where are you, buddy? Well, there he is, the man that goes by a lot of names. I know you say you don't like necessarily the word concierge. I told people about you in the intro. I think of the word magician. But I love the nickname you got, the guy who gets shit done. Everybody, Steve Sims. Welcome, man.
Well, thanks for having me. I go by a lot of names, and some of them are nice.
I said a few of the nice ones.
Yeah, you did. Thank you for that,
dude. So here's my deal. I have a major problem right now.
Okay,
can I share it with you?
Please do.
We have way too much shit to talk about, and we can't get to it all. So I'm going to need your help with that.
Well, that's called the sequel, part 2. So, let's see what we do.
Now, you just took all the heat off of me. Thank you. I feel better.
There you go.
You're so good. Yeah, look. So here's the book, Bluefishing. This is amazing. I couldn't love this more for 2 reasons. Well, three really. The first one is that bluefish were the first fish that I grew up loving to catch. True story. I grew up Sea Isle City, New Jersey Beach.
Yeah.
And my first job in my life was a bait boy on a party boat that went out for night blues. So as soon as I saw, I said, I love bluefish, man. Bluefish is one of the coolest fish that, seriously, strongest pound for pound than most fish in the ocean. So that's pretty neat. I don't know if you knew that about bluefish.
I did not. But
I love that I'm getting to teach you that. Have you ever caught one?
Do you know, to be honest with you, I didn't even know it was a fish until like about 5 years ago.
All right. Well, I know a guy who gets shit done. So I'm going to ask that guy if he could co-create an experience, but I have to figure out his why first. On he and I going to catch bluefish together someday.
All right.
We'll have plenty of beers. So, or whiskey. So here are some things. Maybe we'll get to these things today. I just kind of want to read them to you. Okay. All right. And we'll get to whatever we need to. The first thing is like, I'd love to know, we'll start like big picture and then we'll like drop down. Okay. Right? What is it that you really want people to know? Because you get amazing things done, but you know what? You know what the word that comes up for you is you're a servant. You serve humans profoundly. In getting stuff done, you serve the people that you're asking from as well. You serve people that wouldn't even necessarily be involved. So you create ways to serve. So I'd love to know, what is it that you love would love for people to know? Then after, we'll talk a little bit about your background, because I think it's really, really important. I can anticipate the strong probability that as soon as people start listening, you talk about these stories and they're like, this guy, he's different. He's got something special I don't got. They're going to pedestal you and stuff. So I think it'd be really fun for people to hear your background. Right, because it's amazing, and then we'll get into the mentality, which was the whole point of this podcast, right? The mentality of creating these amazing experiences and not settling.
So your question was, what is it that I want people to know?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tweak that question and ask you to drill it down. Right. What do I want people to know about themselves or about me?
Oh, okay. Yeah. About themselves and about creating their lives on their terms, or creating what they want for themselves.
All right. Okay. And,
yes.
And I'm also going to hopefully not alienate, but tweak your introduction there about being a person to serve. I'm actually a very selfish person. And I think being selfish is a good thing, because I don't believe you can help people up when you've got broken hands. You've got to be strong in order to be able to help other people. And I saw a lot of people doing things that aggravated me. And like all entrepreneurs, we start off with an aggravation and then we go and develop a way to remove that aggravation. That's what entrepreneurs do. Elon Musk invented PayPal because he couldn't understand why it took 5 days to wire money from one US bank to another. It made no sense. So that aggravation led to PayPal and so many other ways around. For me, I was aggravated that people settled. I was aggravated that people let fear, humiliation, and here's the dumb thing, laughter get in the way of them doing things. And I would be sitting in the pub as a bricklayer from East London, never had any money, never had any skill set, never had any qualifications, and someone would sell a car and all of a sudden they've got $5,000 in their pocket. And they're at the table full of us broke drunk asses going, oh, where should I invest it? And worse than that, they were bloody listening to people that had no idea, that had just read something or seen something on TV and gone, oh, you should do this. And they're like, that's a great idea, Tommy. Thank you. We didn't know shit, but these people were listening to us. And then the flip side of that, you would get people go, do you know, I don't like the way this is. I'm going to invent this. And then again, everyone in the pub goes, go, you're stupid, Chris. You can't do that. And again, stupidly, you'd listen to them. So I could never understand why people would listen to people that had no qualifications or credibility or experience. And secondly, why would they settle based on other people's levels and standards? And those two aggravations kind of bothered me. So I want people to go, look, you go for what's achievable. Stop that. Go for something that people will ridicule you. Go for stupid. Go for what people will laugh at you because it's so ridiculous as a concept. And then use that laughter to fuel yourself to achieve it, to prove how inadequate they were to be able to do so.
So I am a huge fan of not settling. I've committed my life, and this podcast is a simple expression of my commitment to inspire, to not settle myself, right? And to inspire the world to stop settling. My philosophy, my belief is that the world doesn't want us to settle, right? That we're not designed to settle, right? We're miracles designed to create miracles, and you're creating miracles. So why don't you give us a little bit about your background? You have a cool story.
It's the same as every other entrepreneur, but thank you very much. I grew up in East London. I left school at the age of 15. My advisor at school said, don't even bother applying for college. It'd be a waste of time, Mr. Sims. And I was like, oh, okay then. So at the age of 15, left school, went on the building site with my dad and ground to a halt. I was like, is this it? And I remember one day I got to work and they were a bit light-handed on laborers. And my dad said to me, right, you can carry the bricks and stuff today. You're laboring. And at least I thought being a bricklayer was a qualification, was a skill set. And it is. Being a bricklayer and a masonry, it is a skill set. But being a laborer, no disrespect to the laborers out there, but you basically just got to lump heavy stuff around and be able to graft. And my dad said, you're doing that because, we're light-handed. And I'm like, yeah, all right. And I went up onto the scaffolding. I climbed up the scaffolding with a big pile of bricks on my shoulder. I'm like 16 years old. So I've been doing this for like a year and a half. Get to the top of this scaffolding, load the bricks down. But before I did that, I turned and there was my dad. Next to him, my uncle. Next to my uncle, my two cousins. One was 19, the other one was 23. And then my granddad, who was in his early 80s. All in a line. And I froze. Everything went quiet. And my dad yelled at me, put the bricks down and get some more. But in my head, I'm like, this is my family tree. This is my future. I am looking into the future and seeing every part of it. This is it. Yeah. And I put the bricks down. I went down, got some more bricks. Came to like 10:30 in the morning. It was tea break time. And we all piled into an old caravan. We're all dirty. We're all wet. All trying to warm up a little bit in East London. And my granddad, being one of the oldest and people having respect for his age, he was allowed to sit closest to the heater. And I remember kind of like squirming all the way through all the other wet bodies to get to my granddad and kneeling down in front of my granddad. Now, you got to understand, I come from an Irish family and I'm 6 foot, big and ugly, 240 pound of ugly Irish bricklayer boy. My granddad was 7'1".
What?
That's a wall of a man. Yeah. Now, to make it worse, his son, my dad, was 5'5". So he kind of like completely missed it. So it was always a bit of a joke how that kind of worked.
Of course.
But I went down, and even when my granddad was sitting down, he was a big lad. And I remember the size of his hands. And, he was a bit of a lad in his day. So he had a bit of a name in the pub and stuff. And I went and sat down in front of him and I knelt down in front of him. And I remember this day vividly. I had all the kind of patience of a typical 16-year-old. And I'm like, Granddad, did you ever think you'd be doing this when you were your age? Now, it was the kind of question that really should have been met with a smack on my nose. But he didn't even look at me. He just blew into his thermos of tea that he'd poured out. And I remember this word for effing word. He said, son, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow. And I was like, whoa. And the whole caravan went quiet and it hit me hard. And then the bell went and the caravan started to kind of like bustle up with noise. And we all were kind of like ushered out to the caravan to get back on the site. Now, my dad never liked being called dad on the building site. He wanted to be called Cuz. And of course, like, yeah, Cuz, was his nickname, Cuz. Yeah. And, like cousin, that kind of thing. And I came bolting out of that tea hut, like a bullet out of a gun. And I'm like, Dad. And he could turn and he was like, shush, Dad. And I went running up to him. And I went, You're not going to believe this, Dad, but I ran up the scout and then I looked at and then I saw you and I came down. I went in the tea hut and I saw and I went over to Granddad and I saw and I said, what would you? And he said, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow. Dad, I got to quit. And my dad's looking at me and all of a sudden a shadow came over us. It was Granddad that had now made it out of the hut.
Oh, okay.
Now, when my granddad's behind you, when any 7'1" man's behind you, you know that behind you.
Yeah.
My dad was looking up to me and then looked up even further to Granddad. And they both just looked at each other, gave a little smirk, looked at me, and he went, we're light-handed this week. You finish Friday. I went, done. Now, I never got to see my granddad because he then walked off, and I felt his presence. Never got to see him again. You know, he died shortly after that. Never got to tell my granddad what a conduit, what a lighter he was to my firework that actually got me out. Now, my dad said, go off and make shit happen. And I remember him saying that. Now, the funny thing is, when I got home to my mum, Irish lass, my dad said, oh, yeah, Steve, he's off in the world. We're going to see what mayhem he can handle. He's out there. Go get it, son. My mum, when my dad left the room, came up to me and she went, you think you're better than us, don't you? And I was like, whoa, no. I just think maybe I'm better than this for me. I want to go out and find out. Of which she eloquently repeated, you just think you're better than us. I never got to see my granddad to say thank you to my granddad. Sadly, my relationship with my mum was never, ever, ever the same. Oh, wow. She was always bitter. Even when I was working for Ferrari, I ended up doing some work for Ferrari and they lent me a car, you know, so I was living in Switzerland. So we're jumping fast. Sure. My life was rosy. You know, I was doing this stuff with celebrities, traveling the world, working for the richest people in the planet to make them more interesting by getting them into these things. Working for Ferrari, I drove to this little village in this Ferrari to show my parents, look at this Ferrari. My dad, first of all, said, is that a Lotus? And I went, no, Dad, that's the latest model Ferrari. And he was like, oh, and he wouldn't drive it, but I took him for a little drive. But when I came back and told them the story of what I'd got up to on what I was doing, which, you know, I'm sure we're going to on this, my dad, again, left the room to make a cup of tea actually went to get a beer for us. My mum literally leaned over to me and she went, are you selling drugs?
Oh, wow.
She couldn't believe that I was so aggravated that I had to get in a world of affluence because I had to understand. I had to decipher why people were rich and why I wasn't. Because I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I knew my dad still was, and he'd get home at 6, 7 o'clock at night, all wet and crapped on for the day. So we knew how to graft. But why were you rich and I'm not? That was the question I needed to ask rich people. And along the way, the byproduct was that by surrounding myself with impactful, creative disruptors, I became one. And by surrounding myself by affluent people, my bank account benefited from it. But my mum could never grasp that. And so you got to understand that, sadly, to be able to get on, you got to,
not us. That's not us.
Get on.
That's not us.
You've sadly got to kind of like chip away of some of the things that are holding you back. And in this situation, one of them was my mum.
Yeah, and that's the psychology of it, man. So I actually think you say it in the book. You say early on in the book, you say you kind of got to be a psychologist. And in that initial context, you meant in terms of like being able to help other people understand why they want their wants and what's behind it, right? And all that. But you also need to be a psychologist for yourself. And that's what the whole rest of your book is about examining that. Like that's not like the believing of that, right?
Yep.
It's so damn convincing that would have your mom be stuck in that thinking, right? Which is, are you selling drugs? How could this be possible? Because the conditioning of our past, and I define, by the way, just FYI, you know, I call myself a mental toughness coach. And a lot of times people just think mental toughness is all about like, you know, the rugby, like the grunt. And maybe that's a piece of it, but that's not my definition. All right. My definition is mental toughness is the product of freeing yourself from the past so that you don't settle.
Yep.
So let's jump up to Hong Kong.
So being a bricklayer and deciding, right, that's not going to be me. I've got to see how far I can go. A friend of mine that I met on the train told me about this job for training stockbrokers. Now, bearing in mind, for anyone that can't see me here, you know, I'm a little bit over 21. So, you know, I'm 55. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s when we had like Wall Street and Gecko and the red Ferraris and the cell phones attached to briefcases. I wanted that world. Okay. And so when I got the chance of a trainee stockbroker interview, not the job, interview, I had suddenly had delusions of grandeur. Oh, if I was a stockbroker, that's where the money is, you know? So when I turned up for the interview, it was a mass interview of about 200 people. And they just did this interview from the stage, and I managed to talk to someone and put my name down. Bottom line of it is, I thought it was a waste of time. But they were getting so many people over to Hong Kong because Hong Kong was exploding. And what everyone wanted in Hong Kong was British stockbrokers. It's like if you got a tailor, you want a British tailor, you know, because apparently that's supposed to be better than someone else, you know. And I'm not just saying that because I'm British and I can tell you that I'm not. But anyway, I ended up getting the job. So I got transferred over to Hong Kong, or sent over to Hong Kong. And I landed on the Saturday, got drunk with them on the Saturday, got drunk with them on the Sunday because I was highly qualified to do those things. Did orientation on the Monday, and I was fired on the Tuesday. So I'm now in a new country, and I've got no friends. Everyone that had come over on the plane with me didn't want to talk to me because they looked at me like a fake and a fraud and a failure because I wasn't good enough. And I said to them, no, you don't understand. I came from being a bricklayer. I've been a bricklayer, a truck driver, a doorman, insurance salesman, you know, a door-to-door book sales. I tried all these different things. I was trying to better myself, but to everyone else, they just looked at me like a cancer and a virus. So the daft thing was the bank that had brought me over, they said, because you're here and we brought you here, we've got to give you 2 months severance, okay, which was like $6,000, which I thought I was the richest guy in the world. In Hong Kong, that lasted about 3 weeks. And they said, but you get the apartment for 3 months. But of course, everyone in the apartment that I was sharing it with, because there was a bunch of other guys in there, they all hated me. So I would have to stay out all night and then go back in the morning when they went to work, sleep during the day, and then go back out. It was very hard to find a job working those hours. I ended up sitting outside a bar in Wan Chai, drinking whiskey, thinking my life's over. The only time I ever lied to my wife, once a week, she'd say, how's it going? It's going really well, darling. You know? And I had nothing. And I'm sitting outside this club, you know, looking over my Shivers whiskey, thinking, what's happened? Am I going to have to, because I had a return ticket, am I going to have to go back to England where I'm going to meet everyone in the pub going, well, we knew it wouldn't work. What an idiot. You knew you couldn't do that. And I didn't want to go back to that. And this girl came over to me, and it was really funny. She came over to me and she went, you, and I'm not going to do the accent, but it was this 5-foot-old Chinese woman that owned the bar. And she came over and she went, you. She said, you need to get your people out of here or my people will. And I thought to myself, who's my people? You know, I'm here drinking whiskey on my own. I've got no mates around me. I'm not exactly looking warm and inviting. So who's my people? So the curiosity got to me. Let's be serious. All entrepreneurs, we're curious. So I got up, walked through the curtains of the door to see who my people were. Yeah. And there's 3 belligerent white guys on a table getting all leery, drinking and yelling at the girls. And I'm like, them? And she went, yeah. I said, I don't know them. They're nothing to do with me. And she said, you get them out or my people will. I said, girl, do what you like. I couldn't give a shit. And so she could see that I had no ties with them. And she went, hang on, you get them out. Because again, big, ugly guy. She said, you get them out and I'll buy all your drink. And I thought, now I'm interested. Now you got me, all right?
Now you got my why.
Yeah, so I went over and I sat down with the guys. And of course, like these 3 guys are now looking at me, sitting down at their table. And I went, look, boys, I've just been asked to, you know, can I ask you to leave? So here's the thing. Please pay your bill. Leave the front door within the next few minutes. Or a bunch of Chinese guys are going to run out of those curtains with bats, you may not even see Tuesday. So I'm really praying you make the wise choice. I'm going to go back outside and finish my whiskey. I pray you walk out that way. And if you do, I'll buy you a beer tomorrow. Me thinking I'm not going to be here tomorrow, so who gives a shit? So I went back out the front, sitting down with my whiskey. And she's like, what happened? Well, I said, we'll see. 2 minutes later, they walked out and they're like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks. And I'm like, hey, have a good night. And that was it. And now I'm thinking, great, I'm staying here and I'm drinking this woman out of this bar, because I've been told I can get a free drink. So that was my only focus. So she came over and she went, you want job as doorman? And I was like, well, I got no money. Yeah, all right. So I started working on the door. And the bad thing is, to give the conclusion to this story, those guys came back the following night and they went,
yeah, and you got to buy a beer.
They went, hey, you're buying us the beer, aren't you? So I turned around to the woman that owned it and I went, oh, yeah, we got to give these guys a free beer. And she went, no. You got to give them a free beer because you promised. Oh, shit. So I started off by being a doorman thinking this is the worst place I could be. A shitty little nightclub in Wan Chai, Hong Kong. This was in the 80s and 90s when it was everything was going on in this area.
Neptune.
It was Neptune's, yeah. And I was thinking to myself, this is it. I've gone from a bricklayer, which at least was a skilled profession. You had a skill to being a bricklayer. How could I have gone down? But the funny thing was, from that doors position, and I think again, this is the thing with entrepreneurs. We look at what we can make out of the crap we've been given, okay? And I'm sitting on the door and I'm suddenly seeing people and I'm like, hang on a minute. This is an education in body language, human psychology. Have you ever noticed when you're at a nightclub, people walk towards the door where there's the two meatheads on the door and they make the choice. They make the choice to walk up to the doorman and go, hey, I need a booth. And they walk in, or they go, well, there's the line over there. I'm going to go and stand in line. They self-select. And this fascinated me. And then you would have people that would pull up in a fancy car, which always made me laugh because it's Hong Kong. You could basically walk around Hong Kong, but they would pull up in a fancy car. They would get out of the car and then they would put their jacket on almost in slow motion, just so everyone could see that they had a fancy car. Or they would put the jacket on quick, tip the valet just to kind of like keep it close and walk up to us and go, hey guys, can I have a booth? And be like, oh, Sonny. I noticed then, are you driving the car or is the car driving you? And I started playing these little games in my head. And have you ever noticed when a guy's got a fancy watch on and he's trying to impress you, that side of his suit is pulled up a little bit so he can show off his watch? Yet the person that bought the watch for themselves, not for you, but for themselves, they don't care if you can see it or not. It's for them. So I got a PhD, an MBA, a doctorate in body language and psychology. And had it not been for being a doorman in Neptune's, I would have never started throwing parties, inviting rich people, and ending up working for Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Sir Elton John's Oscar party, the New York Fashion Week, the biggest events on the planet, all came from that single spark of being a doorman in Hong Kong.
So we could tell. All right. So this is where you came up with the passwords, right? Now I studied because as soon as I saw the title of the book, I'm like, okay, I want to know why it's called Bluefishing. Why is he calling this Bluefishing? And I still, after having read the entire book, I still have a little question about it. It is from the Dr. Seuss thing, right? It just was one of the passwords that you came up with there, which we don't need to get totally into. People just get the book if you want to know all the password stuff, because I have a million other questions I got to ask you. But is that it? The one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish?
It was exactly from that. And then people took the password, which the end of the password was the word bluefish.
Yep.
And they started to see that it was a mentality and an adjective of doing something. So people went, oh, I'm going to do something. Let me see how I can bluefish the crap out of it. Oh, I'm going to be a bluefisher. So without realizing it, it became a mindset.
Ah, that's okay. Perfect segue. Can you tell us the Ritz story? Me specifically, like when I don't remember at what point in your history, but maybe it was before Hong Kong even, or not, I don't know. but you would wonder what it's like to stay in a $2,000 hotel room. So then you just started hanging out in like the coffee shop at the Ritz, and you're like, oh, this is what it's like. You got a taste of it.
Yeah.
And you say it's not faking it. This is a big deal to me. This is one of the biggest points of the book for me. Okay, that stood out for me was about just going and get a flavor of something that you dream about, to have it start to become real, and it's not faking it. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, it's all a case of, again, it's back to this going for what what's achievable. How do you know what's achievable if you've never done it before? If you want a Ferrari, go to a showroom on a Saturday afternoon and sit in it, taste it, feel it, and buy the key fob. You know, just start getting immersed in that experience.
Did you say buy the key fob?
Yeah.
So just go home with a key fob to a car that you don't have.
I can't show you it now, but when I was at home back in England, there was a Ducati Hailwood that was like a big winning superbike of its era. It ain't too fast now compared to today, but it was like, to me, the holy grail of motorcycles. So I remember it was about 15 years ago, I bought the key fob of the Hailwood, okay? Couldn't afford the bike, but I bought the key fob. And I kept that key fob, and I wanted to get a mint condition, concourse condition bike. And 4 years ago, a museum went bankrupt. That's a shame. But it had a mint condition Hailwood that I ended up buying. And do you know, I ended up putting the key on my key fob. So, you know, back to the Ritz. You want to know what it's like to be rich? Start tasting what it's like to be rich. Now, a lot of rich people, they go to the Ritz, they go to the Mandarin Oriental. Go there and have a cup of tea. Now, yeah, you could buy a cup of tea cheaper down the road or a cup of coffee, but go there and just know what the experience. See how people react to you. See how people react to each other. And then go up to the front desk and go, hey, I've got some friends coming in town in a few weeks' time.
This is brilliant.
I've got some friends coming in a few weeks' time, and they're looking at doing some bits. So I need to know what your suite looks like. Could you show me one of the suites? And they will take you up and they will show you what a $2,000 per night suite looks like. And you'll go, okay, I can't afford it.
Right.
I can't stay here, but I'm closer to knowing what it's like to walk through the door of a $2,000 suite. And then you start realizing what the differences are. And so that's what I say, engage yourself and taste those little differences, so that when you actually get closer and closer and closer, you've already immersed yourself.
But yeah, so I think that's like a huge leap, though, in terms of getting closer and closer, is because that might be the biggest step of all those steps, is because you've taken it out of the that's not for me realm and into, well, let's just go see.
Yeah,
like, let's go start making it real.
Once you and there you go. That's why you are who you are. Once you make the decision, let's go and make it real. Let's go and taste it. You take it out of the dream state, and you put it into the facts.
Your goddamn reality.
You do,
Go ahead, keep going.
No, and that's why you suddenly start knowing what the leather of a Ferrari feels like against your back.
It smells like, right?
You've been immersed in it. Yep. You know, so you broke that glass ceiling that says that's not for me. And you've gone, well, it could be.
Maybe.
So now, what do I have to do for it to be? You suddenly start changing your whole mentality, and things in your head start clicking differently.
And I imagine then that ultimately you arrive at a place where then you're so far away from that's not me. You're in the everything is me.
Yeah.
If it's a desire, then here it is. It's like, it's inconceivable. This is your language. It's inconceivable that if I want it, that it's not available to me.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife actually said I had the superpower of ignorance.
Well, good on her and good on that, right? Being ignorant to your goddamn limitations.
I would walk up and talk to people. I would get things, and afterwards people would go, how did you get that? And I'd be like,
okay.
Do you know, I don't really know, but I hadn't got frightened of it. I hadn't used all the fear to hold me back. I had just gone.
Okay, so but you add so much more to the mechanics of this, right? It starts, of course, it starts with that mentality. None of anything that you write after page 6 matters if you can't like get out of the "that's not for me" mentality. Okay, then there's all the mechanics, and that's why I called you servant. Can you tell us the Bocelli story? This is huge. I love this so much. I saw the statue, David, and it is pretty spectacular. And then when you told the story about what happened there, I thought, well, that's pretty awesome. And then you tell about damn Andrea, but the details of how you created that. And that's really, I think, going to be one of the biggest takeaways for people who are listening and watching this is how do you creating your life, right? And creating excellence and miracles. So can you tell us that story?
Sure. So straight away, to give you the context, I had a client that wanted to have a dining experience in Florence to show how powerful he was to his fiance's mother and father.
Okay.
So that was it. That was the description. Okay. But it was the word experience. You know, if he had said I wanted a restaurant, different. But he wanted a dining experience. So I've always said, never give a client what they ask for, give them what they want, lust, and desire for. So I went for that. So I went for stupid. Everything I ever do, whether I'm coaching, whether I'm doing an event, whether I'm working for a client, how ridiculous can I take that and be prepared to not get it, but you'll always get way above what the original request was.
Beautiful. Perfect.
So
perfect.
I thought to myself, okay, you're in Florence. If you were in Paris, what would you need to be around for everyone to go, wow, he's in Paris? Eiffel Tower. You know, if you're in New York, what would I need to be? Statue of Liberty. If I was in Washington, you know, the White House, or maybe there's a couple of others. But what's in Florence that is unquestionable? Wow, he's in Florence. Okay. Yep. Michelangelo's statue of David. So I went to the museum because I thought to myself, okay, it's David. What can I do with David? Okay, they want to eat, so I need a table. So I need a table. I need them to have a meal at the feet of Michelangelo's David. Okay, that's the stupid. Yeah. How can I get that? Yeah. And I've always believed, never introduce yourself. Get someone of an equal to make the introduction for you, because then you ride in on that credibility. So I started contacting people I knew in Italy, going, hey, I've got this amazing idea of having a dining a table, a single table for 4 people. The table actually ended up getting escalated to 6. But for 4 people to have dinner at the feet of Michelangelo's David. And I had a lot of people going, well, that's never been done. Well, that's not the question. So you know? So that's just a fact.
Yeah, like why hasn't it been done? Why hasn't it been done?
Exactly.
Why we're talking about this.
So they introduced me, and I put this whole experience to them, and I don't know how much of the mechanics you want me to go through, but they said yes. And how about the
mechanics of the roof?
Okay, so you do want those. Okay.
I do want those. I think it's very critical.
Okay.
It's hugely critical.
People they run with too much potluck that they may be really smooth at selling the opportunity they want. I never enter a conversation with luck. Okay. If it's an important relationship or a important request, I plan it like military position. So I was thinking to myself, how can I get a museum to give it to me from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 o'clock in the morning, actually 3 o'clock in the afternoon? How can I get them to say yes? If I walk in and go, can I have this?
Right.
There's only 2 answers, yes or no. And 9 times out of 10, 90% like a chance you're going to get the no, which is not the question. And when you get a no, then you've got to start the uphill battle to try and swing it to, you don't want to be doing that. So I was doing some research, and as I'm doing my research, I found out that there was going to be the gala coming up at the end of the year to repair the roof. Now, they hadn't done any flyers yet, but I'd heard wind that a gala was being planned for later on in the year. So when I went to them, I didn't tell them that I wanted a dinner at the feet of Michelangelo's David.
Right.
I didn't tell them that I wanted them to close at 3 o'clock till 2 o'clock. I entered the room asking them, how's the gala going? And they were like, the gala? And I said, yeah, I know that you're doing a gala. And part of the main reason for doing the gala is because you need to raise proceeds to repair the roof of this fine, beautiful, historic museum. And they said, yes, we do. And I said, well, how much of a task is this? And they said, well, it's got to do this, it's got to do that. I said, so it's a big deal for you. And we had an entire conversation about the roof, a problem of theirs.
Right.
And then I went, how would you, before you've even printed one flyer, like to have actually covered a third of the cost of that roof? Would that be of interest to you?
Now, hold on, let me just break it down. Let me dumb it down. All right. For me. How did you know you'd be able to cover a third? Like, where would that come from, the fee from your client?
Yeah. So for a start,
so you would just give a portion of it to them to get it, have it happen.
Correct. I had to interest them. You see, here's the thing. I've never understood. People produce a product. People produce a app. They've got a service.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they do is they market it to poor people. Now, people are going to go, oh, my God, that bastard, he's calling people poor. I know how people market, because they market to themselves because they have no money. I market to people when money is not part of the question. Okay? If I've got a guy over here that earns $100,000 a year, I've got a guy over here that earns $1 billion a year, and they've both got the same problem, which one is the smartest one for me to market to? The billionaire, because then I know paying the invoice will never become part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I only ever marketed to people who could actually pay for the whims and desires that I was going to be able to do. So I always.
What's really important and relevant about that has nothing to do with the magnitude of people's income and fame and all that shit. It's just the thinking behind it. Yep. It's your thinking behind that I can create. So it's like the bigger thinking, bigger thinking, right? That then you're like, well, of course I can just pay for a third of these people. The guy's going to pay me so much freaking money to pull this shit off. I could just pay for part of your roof. Does that sound like a good idea to you? And then they go,
and,
right?
that was exactly it. And I still, even though this was my go for stupid, I had still, before I'd even entered that room, I'd been looking up penthouses, I'd been looking up chapels, I'd been looking up other stuff thinking, well, they're going to kick me out after 30 seconds. I've still got to find some. Bearing in mind, what people aren't aware of was that he wanted the meal Wednesday night. I'm in Florence on a Monday morning. So I basically had like 2.5 days to be able to pull this off.
Wow.
So this was 11 o'clock in the morning. I'd started making phone calls on the Sunday. I was in Rome at the time. I'd got the request on the Sunday. I'd made calls on the Sunday. So it was 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting in the Accademia de Galleria, expecting to be told, finish your espresso and get out. And because I had gone in there and solved a problem that they had, they went, sounds great. What's in it for you, Mr. Sims?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, whoa, I've got the nod. And I told them, and again, I said to them, let me tell you a story. This is what I do. People come to me because they want fantastic. They want to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in 10 years' time and go, I can't believe that happened. And of course, I was able to go, I've done this with Elon Musk. I've done this with Richard Branson. I've done this with the New York Fashion Week. I've done this with Ferrari in Monaco. I want my next dream to be this. I want to set up a table of 4 at the feet of Michelangelo's David, have a top Tuscan chef come in and serve my clients while they're looking at obviously the most beautiful statue in the planet. And I got them into the dream. Never spoke about the money, never spoke about the timings, told them about the dream. And I said to them, can you imagine if you were going to have an Italian meal, could it ever be topped than that location and that meal? Could it ever? Do you want to be part of making that happen? And they went for it. And I have to be honest with you, I left that room going, they just said yes. I can't believe this, and and I remember going back to my hotel room and phoning my wife she was still in Los Angeles, and going, I've got an entire museum that's shutting down for me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 2. I've got it. And she's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I work it out, So we went on with that. And here's where it got funny. Museums are very, very quiet. So the chinking of the plate was going to make it irritating. So we found Again, Google searches a string quartet, okay? And they were going to be in there. And I worked for Sir Elton John for 8 years with his Oscar party here in Los Angeles.
Right.
And I thought to myself, and again, typical entrepreneur, this is Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
I've already got the chef, I've got the string quartet, got the museum, got the caterer. I've got it, okay? But I've still got 2 days. So what would take this from stupid and ridiculous to, are you raving nuts?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, well, who's the most famous singer in Italy? And Andrea Bocelli. Where does he live? A little bit of Google search, Tuscany. Ooh, I'm in Tuscany. I wonder if he's home. I wonder if I could get him just to pop out of home for the evening, sing a couple of tunes and bugger off home. And I contacted some people I know in the music industry that made the introduction. And again, did some research. He has a cancer foundation. So I contacted him and I said, look, you'll be missing out. And I spoke to his wife. You'll be missing out on dinner for the night. We'll make a sizable donation to your cancer foundation for you to be part of the most amazing Italian meal ever known at the feet of Michelangelo's David. Do you want to be part of that story? And they were like, oh, that sounds fantastic. So they
wait, who did you communicate that to? Was it
Veronica, his wife?
Oh, that's who you got in touch with? Okay.
Yeah, I got into, well, I was introduced to Andrea Bocelli, or my name was introduced to Andrea Bocelli, and Andrea got his wife, who speaks phenomenal English, to actually speak to me. And then Andrea turned up at like 4:00 in the afternoon on the Wednesday, and we got to chatting and telling stories, and it was a really cool evening. The client, bearing in mind, this is the weird thing, the client had an hour and a half in the museum, doing this entire experience. I had from 3:00 in the afternoon to like 1:00 in the morning, and about 4 of those hours, I'm just chilling over espressos with Andrea Bocelli while looking over Michelangelo's David. I definitely got the winning part of that gig.
At what point did your clients become aware of the fact that Andrea Bocelli was coming to sing at their damn dinner?
So Monday night, I told the client of the location, the meal, and everything. And I said to him, I've got it. Do you want to proceed? Okay. And he was like, I can't believe you did. Yes, 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 yes. And I said,
you better say yes.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
Right.
But I said to him, and what I'm going to do is we've got a string quartet. And I said to him, I'm going to get a local entertainer to see if they can come in and serenade.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that'd be beautiful. So on the night, the string quartet's going. I walk over to him. The family already knew who I was. They'd seen me around at different things. This was a client I did a lot of work with. So I knew he was a powerful man that had the juice. So I went over to him and I said to him, I hope you're enjoying the meal. We found a local singer. Get this, you're going to like this. I said, he's quite good. He's quite good. May I bring him in to serenade you, during your meal? And he was like, yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. Great. No one knew it was Andrea Bocelli. So then I walk around the corner and I came out holding Andrea. He's got his arm on my arm as we slowly walk out. And his future wife drops the fork.
Of course.
It's like clink, clink, clink.
Are you
clink,
kidding
clink.
me?
And everyone's like, and they're like, oh my God. And he's like, good evening. And they were just like silent. So that was it.
So good. That's got to be, oh man, that's so beautiful. I love that story so much. And there's a few things like you said, obviously, when you tell these stories, like, well, I called a couple contacts that I had. I think it's important to know that those contacts, you're not lucky to have those.
No.
Right? Like you created all of this. You created the people you can call from nothing.
Yeah, I'm not going to leave it to chance. And so the funny thing is, when you've got it was weird because as I was growing up, and I know we've only actually got like about 12 minutes, but as I say, I've already promised you a part 2 if you want to. But
damn right.
I noticed that when I was starting, and people need to first understand, I built the world's most experiential concierge firm, not because I wanted to be a concierge to the rich and powerful, but because I wanted to engage them in a conversation while you're rich and I'm not. And as I'm throwing these parties for affluent people, I was now able to have those conversations. And it was funny because the attendees at my parties, I was now using to build relationships to potentially use the connections they had for the dreams I was. So it was a ladder effect.
Yeah. Yep. It's all interwoven. But this is why I think of you as a servant, because, maybe you don't like that language, or maybe it doesn't mean anything to you, but you want. Okay, well, you're serving people. I mean, you're finding a way to get something done for someone else through service to multiple other parties, like these charities and the people, like helping fix the roof. I think you mentioned it. It's like a multiple win. It's
got to be. If it's
and that's magical to me, right? So I interviewed a guy for a podcast that's going to go live in here in a minute. And the title of that one was Normalize the Miraculous. And I thought about it a few times while we're talking, you and me today, because it's what you do. You normalize the miraculous. You take what's miraculous and you go, well, does it have to be really miraculous? I mean, let's have it feel miraculous, but let's acknowledge it's not really, because it's really available.
Yeah, I do dumb it down and make it more approachable.
Well, I'm a big fan of dumbing shit down. So thank you for that. And thank you for this, everybody. Bluefishing. I don't care what world, what industry, whatever the hell you're into, man. I learned so much from this. Look, I studied the shit out of this. I got all these pages and notes. We definitely do. Before we go, though, two things. One, I want to ask, where do you want people to go to find you and whatnot? I'm going to put all the links in, but for people that are just listening. But one thing I really wanted to acknowledge you for is you're the first author in my experience to ever include the word arsehole in your book. So I just want to
think for that. There you go. It sums me up perfectly, doesn't it?
So, all right, where should people go to find you? You're all over the place. You got your website, Stephen D. Sims. Does the D really stand for dog?
No, but I just said it's actually Steve D. Sims. It's only one M in Sims.
Yep.
SteveDSims.com. You can find, I've got a free Facebook group called An Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims, or you can find me on Instagram at Steve D. Sims. I'm everywhere. I'm easier to get than COVID.
Well, this has been awesome. I accept your offer from the get-go for round 2, and we'll be in touch on that. So until then, thank you, brother. Really, really appreciate you sharing your contribution, your wisdom, your humor, your amazing storytelling, and your inspiration to my Top Talks tribes. So thanks, brother.
Cheers, man. See you on part 2.
Yeah, man. Look forward to it. That was cool. That was really fun. And I'm super psyched that he, right out of the chute, he made that offer that I accepted, right? Which is for a round 2 for another episode. Because what's cool is I had like 3 pages of notes here from his book. I showed it. I studied the hell out of this book. This is really spectacular. I totally recommend this book, Bluefishing. It's so great, so great to change up your thinking, to open up, to free your mind from the constraints of the conditioning of our past. What the hell? It's my whole damn life, is to help people, help me and help other people free ourselves from the conditioning of our past so we can experience life miraculously, right? Magically. And be able to experience all this excellence that is available to us, but that our learning would have us think isn't. So, and he just normalizes that. But one of the things, after we hung up, we talked for maybe like 90 more seconds. And one of the things that he said, and he said it very casually, which is one of the things I love about this guy, is that I referenced Normalizing the Miraculous, which was the title of an episode with Devin Bandison. And he said, yeah, I'll look forward to the second for the cameo, or I forget, he called it something else, episode number 2. He said, then where we can talk about, because I said, thanks for the way, the way you show up, the way you use your life, and you inspire the hell out of people. He goes, yeah, I love that I get to share it and also share the effortlessness of it. I said, I beg your pardon? He said, yeah, the effortless. Well, that's perfect. So that is going to be the subject for our second conversation, because I think that is something I totally want to unpack with him, because that might sound effortless. He just got done saying it goes to a lot of effort, but I'm not going to put any words in his mouth. I have an hypothesis on what he may mean by that, because my hypothesis is that it's probably very, very consistent with all the observations I've made on human peak performance, because people almost always use the word effortless when they're describing peak performance of being in the zone. So that's cool. So look forward to that. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in as always to Tough Talks. And until next time, create miracles.